Hello and welcome to the short Vort on Parsha Shemos. The short Vort gets political without naming Shemos. We learned a lesson perhaps from the presidential protesters on Fifth Avenue and elsewhere related to something in the Parsha where Paro convenes what might be considered a security council according to the Gemara in Sota Daf 11a, Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. And he had three people. He had Bilam to help him decide what to do with the Jews. And Bilam said, he was advocating destroying them, enslaving them. And for this he was punished to be killed. He was later killed by the Jews. Eov, another of his advisors, he was silent and he was punished with an intense pain experience. And Yisro, who fled as a way of objecting to what he disagreed with, so he was rewarded that even some of his descendants reached the level of being in the Sanhedrin. So, that's the way that three different advisors to Paro reacted. Now, it might be a little bit of a question, is like, why would Eov be punished just by being silent? It wouldn't have helped. Paro wasn't going to listen. He had his mind set up. He was just making through the formalities. So, and we see that this is true, that it wouldn't have helped, because if it would have helped, then just by fleeing would not have been sufficient an action by Yisro to be rewarded. He would have actually had to have been proactive and saying, look, no, do not do anything to the Jews. But since that wouldn't have helped anyhow, he was rewarded by showing his dismay by leaving. So why is it that Eov was punished? So the Brisker Rav Yitzchak Zev Soloveitchik, says that Eov, that even though he couldn't change his mind, he has to protest. That is part of the obligation. And even the protesters of the new administration that's going to be elected shortly, and by the time you hear this, is most likely was, that they were in pain and they cried out. Do I think people listen to what they're saying? Do I think they're right? Mostly not, but they're in pain, so they're crying out. So that is the obligation. When someone sees something wrong, when someone sees someone else suffer, whether it's a wrongness or some other pain, that person should cry out in sympathy with the other person. And to get more political than I usually would, when it came to a recent Security Council vote against Israel and its settlements, our friends should not be abstaining. Our friends should be crying out, and if they have a veto, they should be using their veto so that it never even happens. And as a result of that abstention, even though I think it's only a small part of the crowd, and most of the elected representatives have expressed their dismay at what happened, but the people who are in favor of that, they're already suffering. And on their level, could be Jobian suffering of the expectations of 4 more years of a president who does not listen to their politically correct streams. Not to end on a political note, I continue further, and this is all adapted from something I saw in I Love Thy Neighbor by Rabbi Zelig Pliskin, and he brings down a story from Rav Shalom Shwadron that once he saw that a little child in the neighborhood was crying out in pain. He had cut himself. He went out and he put some bandage and started taking him down the street to a local doctor. And there was one lady who happened to be this child's grandmother, and she saw it and said, don't worry, with God's help, it'll be okay. Rabbi Shwadron was wondering what would she think if she found out that it was her grandson. And sure enough, as she realized that it was her grandson, then she cried, my mayor, my mayor. Suddenly the situation changed, and she was crying out in pain. It wasn't enough to be don't worry or more passive. So let us learn to empathize with others who are under pain, to share in their pain, to cry out, to help support them, to help them whether it's a physical pain or political pain or something else. So thank you for listening. Have a wonderful week and wonderful Shabbos, and be active.